pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We got our agenda up there. Tonight we're going to postpone the minutes of the previous meeting. We've got several things that we need to attend to this evening and have been working on the budget since the last meeting. So we're going to jump down to mail. Debbie, do you have any new?
No.
Anyone else? Any mail since last meeting? All right, we'll move down to county attorney.
Nothing new at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Reports. I think we're going to hear from representative from the commissioners a little bit later. How about committee reports? Dale, I think you're the most active committee here of late.
Well, as you all know, the council over the last 3 weeks has finally come to an agreement on a budget for 2014, and it's up for final approval tonight. Hopefully this will bring to a close a very long 3 weeks for us all. Actually, Councilman Winna and Councilman Nobby and I have worked on this for 3 months, so I think we get extra pay for that, don't we? Do we get extra pay for that?
If you do, let me know.
You'd probably have to include Debbie in that too. I think
Okay,
she's
yeah.
probably provided a lot of information along the way.
All right, that's all I have.
Thank you, Dale. Move on down then to unfinished business. Anything we left hanging from last meeting other than working on the budget? Then we'll move on to new business. And the first item there is our public hearing for the highway garage. So this will begin our public hearing, the public hearing portion of this meeting. And the purpose of this meeting is to allow anyone in the audience or community that wants to speak up and present their opinion regarding the construction or purchase of a new building to act as the county highway garage. We have set up a table here for the commissioners if you would like to join us up here, or welcome. Do you want to start with an opening statement, or just?
Well, as you know, we're all here to get additional appropriation from your CUM funds to build a new highway garage. You have received a report from the structural engineer stating the condition of that building down there. Previous to that, Mr. Flum gave us a report that his engineer had been down there a year or so ago, and it should have been condemned then. In addition, Bill McDaniels has went down and looked at the building, and I think he wants to talk to you about that this evening. Since just in the last week, we had another little problem down at the garage. Jay Heaven called up and said there was no electricity down there one morning. He called the electrician to come down and found out that the problem was outside the building. When it was constructed, the entrance wire was brought in underground, not put in a conduit, and right next to a drainage ditch. When they dug down, they found the wires chewed in two, and big problem was, I didn't know this, but that garage was built on a dump. There was a gully in there. People, like they did back then, they put their trash in, and that's where this building is. So that leads to another problem of repairing if you want to do that, and probably leads to, meaning if we build a new one, we're gonna have to go back up on the hill or on the side or somewheres to build it. In addition, as far as reasons for doing something, I've got a short letter here from our insurance company that wrote concerning the liability we might have on that building. As you all know, our property insurance went from $110,000 to $251,000 the last time we renewed it. And well, I'll just read this because it's about three or four lines. From a liability perspective, since you have been informed that the highway garage poses a hazard regarding the condition of the structure, defense of a claim would be significantly diminished. Furthermore, many property losses could be problematic because they could fall within the scope of wear, tear, and deterioration exclusionary language. In other words, we know that the building is such bad repair. Our liability exposure is increased.
Is increased.
So we're here to ask you to appropriate money out of your CUME funds so we can put up a new structure, because it's evident from everybody that's inspected it that the building is past repair. In addition to it being past repair, it doesn't solve our needs that we have for a garage. Now, as I said before, you can get one piece of equipment in there and that's all. And with the old equipment we've got numerous pieces of equipment that are broken and need in that garage. Plus, we don't have enough room to get our equipment all in there. And with the cost of equipment, like I said, those new trucks that we bought last year, around $145,000 a piece. Your grader's $350,000 a piece, and you don't see other people with equipment sitting outside. It's the economic life of the equipment is greatly reduced when you leave it out and store it in the weather. So I'd like for the other two commissioners to speak to what they think about the situation and take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mark. Go, Frank?
I'm sorry.
No, please.
I'll begin by saying that it's not an easy decision. There's nobody, I think I can speak for the other two commissioners, none of us wants to spend the kind of money that it takes to build a new building. However, having said that, and just for the record, okay, all the posts, 99% of the posts are rotten. The rafters are soft and deteriorating. We have the other problems that we've talked about. If presented with these problems, okay, I don't want to kick the can down the road. I've always been of the philosophy, and I'm a human being with my failings, but I'd rather do something right and not do it halfway. A new pole barn building would satisfy our needs for now. Okay, what happens in 15, 25 years? Okay, our grandkids are going to be faced with this same decision again, as opposed to building a steel building which will last 30 to 60, 70 years, whatever. We have the money now. We know that building costs will not be cheaper down the road. It's almost always more expensive. We need more room than what we have now. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, but to work on the bed of a dump truck, they have to move the truck outside and work on it outside. Am I correct?
That's right. We have to raise it up and work on the bed. You have to do it outside because there's not enough room to get it up inside the building.
Okay. We don't have enough room as it is where we are. We need more room because the department and the requirements of the department are growing. And to me, it makes sense, as long as we have the money, those monies are dedicated for specific purposes, for capital improvement, for buildings, okay?
it makes sense to build a steel frame building now, do it right, and not have a future generation or two worrying about this situation again.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Zane?
I have looked at this, I have looked at everything. I have studied it, looked at it over and over and over again. And I've sat at home and looked at the papers and went up to the garage and looked around. And I guess at the end of the day, my biggest issue is the fact that, and I'm just kind of a simple guy, that at the end of the day, you're going to put new rims and tires on a vehicle that's getting ready to blow a motor. I mean, you're going to, can the building be repaired? I'm sure it can for a decent amount of money. But at the end of the day, you still have that same issue with it being a pole barn. And, you know, I talked to somebody about it today, and an actual taxpayer went up to the building and looked at it with me. I said, you know, if you've got a minute, go up there and look, make up your own mind. Don't let me change your mind. And I think by the end of the time that he was up there and walked around the whole structure, he said, well, it was worse than I thought it was. And the garage was smaller than they thought it was. I'm letting the people speak for whatever. I've heard a lot of pros and cons against it. A lot of taxpayers looked at me and said, you know, county's saying it's broke because you're going to go spend $500,000. I'm here to tell you right now, as a council, I don't want to spend $500,000. I really don't. If we can get out of this and build a whole new building for $200,000, that'd be great. But I'm not a construction person, so I don't know exactly what that's going to entail or cost. What I do know is that if the building falls in on one of our employees, we're going to be in hot water. And it's the messes, or, you know, if it falls in on the trucks. The insurance company may not pay our claim because you knew the building was bad in the first place. With all that said, my biggest thing is, as Gary and I talked about today, you know, I don't have the answer, but I want to see the numbers. I want to see it out in front of me of what it's going to cost to build this. But at the end of the day, it's the commissioner's job to come to the council and say, I need X amount of dollars, and see how that works out. You know, if you ask for 6 and you only spend 3, well, and I guess you get the other 3 back. But I want to do it, but we can't commit to, I guess my thing is, you can't commit to having anything done with little or nothing. And I think at the end of the day, we're not going to answer the question tonight. Hey, they're going to build a new garage, and that's it. I don't think we're going to answer that tonight. I think the biggest thing we got to answer is, how much are we going to put out there on the table, and then see what we can get done with it. And believe me, I'm not going to spend any more money than what needs to be done for the taxpayers of Fayette County, because they're going to get the best price. You know, if they want to add on to their house, they go get the best price, and they get quotes. They don't just go with the first guy that walks in the yard. So, you know, my official position is I want to see what it's going to cost, but we got to ask you for the money first. So.
Thank you, Zane. Barton?
I took the liberty of asking the gentleman from Butler Furman, the engineer who inspected the building and give you this report, to come down and talk to you and give you, so he can give you straight out what he saw in the building, what the problems are, and what the condition is.
Hello?
Could you,
Hi. Yeah. I'm Jonathan Serra. I work for Butler Fairman Seifert. We were called to come out and do a safety inspection of the highway garage. We were out there on July 19th. We did an inspection of the whole structure. We crawled around through the interior, the lower portions, to see where the main supports, what kind of condition they were in. We did access attic spaces and some of the office spaces there and around the exterior. There was a few places where it was hard to get to a few of the main structural supports, but I would say we did approximately 80% coverage of the main structural supports. A few of them were hidden, but we were able to see the surrounding conditions to make an assessment around those members. The structure itself was in very poor condition. Of the members that we could get tools on and inspect, the main timbers were very spongy. You could stick wood all right through it. So we were looking at most of the main structural supports were like 80 to 90% section loss down at the base. Now, some of them were 100% section loss, and what's happened on a lot of those structural members is when they've rotted through, they're just crushing down. They're not falling over. And from what we could tell by looking at how the structure was put together, shortly after the structure was put together, like a large workbench was built all along the west wall of the structure. And it was built out of very heavy 6x6 timbers, and that's where the garage or the maintenance workers stack all the chains for the trucks, the tow chains, and the chains for the tires, and the scraper blades, and all that. So it's got a lot of weight on that bench. And as the timbers have rotted, they've started shifting in, but that workbench is kind of stopping it for now. And it's kind of the same thing in the tool crib area, which is the center portion of the structure. The supports down at the base around the doorways, the entryways, and the walls that are drywalled, so you can't physically see the timbers, but you can see at the base of those where they've rotten on the interior and exterior, and the highway workers have poured concrete in there to try to fill those voids in. But you can see the frame that was built inside of the garage, the cherry picker to pull the engines or whatever type of maintenance they're doing. The ceiling goes up and down, and the supports, it's pushing down against it on one side, and there's a gap at the other side. So to me, it looks like the ancillary structures or the equipment inside is kind of what's keeping the structure in shape right now. I called this a safety inspection, and I've done lots of safety inspections in other counties and cities. And a lot of times we're going out there to see, okay, do we have to clear everybody out of here right now? Because usually when you call me, it's not a good situation. And this was in pretty bad shape. I didn't make the call right then, we need to get people out of here, but I wrote this letter, and the last couple paragraphs of the letter are trying to state that this is a high priority, that it needs to get done quickly. You start adding a bunch of snow load on this in the winter, it's going to start pushing on it heavier, some wind loads. It's not any type of condition for that right now. So the main point of this letter was trying to push this along, that a decision needs to be made about what to do. With the structure itself, it's in very poor condition. There's been a lot of movement in it, and there's been repairs made over the years, and the repairs have kept it going this long, but most of those are suspect.
You took the pictures as well?
Yes, I took pictures as well. Was there any questions about any of those photos, or what we're looking at?
Is it possible that we could show those pictures? I think, I didn't realize it, but someone suggested to me earlier today that if the public could see this, maybe they would have a better understanding for what the decision has to be made.
Okay.
And then while Mike's working on that, you're Jonathan, right?
Okay.
Jonathan?
Yes, I'm Jonathan, Sarah.
You mentioned something about concrete to shore up the post.
Right.
Is there a reaction between the concrete and the wooden post? The reason that I ask, I've been investigating, my own as well, but I heard the other day that really that's not the very best way to make those posts last the longest, that in fact they can cause that to rot. You want to shore it up with something different.
Well, the reason they're rotted is mainly just because they're in the ground and they're in a moist environment. Timber, when it gets wet, it starts to rot. Now, I'm sure those posts were treated when they were put in, way back when. Concrete, there's always going to be some interaction between the wood and the concrete. It could rot more right there, but I don't think it's going to be any faster than it's not rotting any faster there than it was in the areas where it was just in contact with the dirt. I think what happens is, a lot of these investigations, just what what I can pull out. I can't say for fact this is what's happening, but it's gravel all around the back side of that, and you got highway trucks that are hauling salt. You got rain, and there's a lot of chemicals and water that's going down through that gravel and resting right around those posts. And they're going to deteriorate pretty quick. Now what has seemed to work pretty good on a couple of the repairs was where, and this has been done a while back, but they built like a little concrete wall and set the post up higher so that the timber's sitting out in the open on the concrete and it's getting a little more air around it. I think that's worked better. But
And then, of course, they weren't exposed to the water runoff.
Right. So moisture is more the factor than concrete contact. Now, if the moisture is sitting on top of the concrete where the timber's sitting, it's going to rot out pretty quick because the concrete's less pervious than the timber and the surroundings, so it's going to hold the water longer.
It's going to hold the water, and the water's going to suck in the wood.
Yep. So as long as there's good drainage around it, it might not be too bad.
Jay, you had a comment to that?
The reason we put the concrete under the post by the garage doors was stop the doors from settling. That's the only reason we did that, because we was causing problems with the doors themselves. And we tried to stop them from going down the yard.
Well, and I think that's part of, as we've been investigating, one thing leads to another, and sometimes, the best solution is to start with a different new structure.
Yeah, you can take a shovel and stick it underneath them corner posts right there.
Bill, you have a question?
No, and related to that is when I was out at the highway garage last week, when I spoke with Darryl. He said it's that particular day, this is late morning, he already had to adjust the hoist twice that day to work the garage door. I guess that's a regular occurrence to continuously adjust it.
The back door, it settles all the time. It's just constant movement of that wall messes the door up. And we've had to do a lot of work on it. I haven't called anybody. We tried to do it in-house, save more money.
I think maybe that's one of the things that Jonathan was referring to, using the hoist in the building and what have you.
The building itself is putting pressure on the stuff inside of it now. So here are some photos. This picture here, the top one, is it's the northwest corner of the building from the outside looking at the post. There's like 2x10s or 2x8s that surround the building to keep the water out. Those have rotted, and you can tell there's nothing here on this side. It's fallen off, but that timber right there was really spongy. It's rotted all the way off. The bottom portion of that you can see all the way through the timber. So that corner is just floating. This picture down here, this was from the inside beneath the workbench. This is another one of the timber supports along the west wall. And this is a wood awl, and the point on that, or the shaft of the tool, is probably like 8 inches long, and you can stick it all the way in there. And most of it you could. There might be one area where it wouldn't go all the way through. That's where we came up with like the 80% section loss. That's fantastic. Here's some more photos. This is a similar thing. You can see through the wood down there. And you can see the discoloration in the wood as well. See this line? That's the spongy line. Everything below there was pretty spongy. At the base where the gravel was pretty much rotten through. And these are all pictures of different posts. We tried to take a picture of every single post in the structure. I didn't include all the photos in the report, but these are typical photos. This is up in the attic above the garage area and the tool crib. These were 2 different areas where there were leaks, where water was coming through the roof area. There was another, this was up like in an attic space, and then it was probably like 4 or 5 feet, so you duck down and crawl through there. And there was another area where you could look through the same type of area to the west of there. And we accessed all those areas, or to the south of there, I'm sorry. So those were just ceiling leaks.
Where you have the ceiling leaks, there's mold? Or would you expect there could be?
It looked like they had got it patched fairly quickly on this, so it wasn't continuing through there. I didn't see any mold in that area. In the northern part of the garage that's open, there was an area where there was mold growing on the timber post. And I mean, it was like 4 inches thick going down on the wheel. That was adjacent to the sign shop that's in there, where they make the signs. Okay, here's some of the posts that you were referring to earlier with the concrete repairs down below. So the top picture shows a repair where they filled in with concrete underneath where the wood was rotten. The bottom one is the same thing again, but I've actually stuck the wood, or the wood all through the timber right above where they fixed, so it's still rotten above there, but they filled in the void below it, is what I was trying to show there. This is on the very south side of the building. There's a sidewalk that's been poured adjacent to the office part of the garage. And there were 3 spalls regularly spaced, which would be where the main supports of the building are. You couldn't see the main supports because of the siding and how close the sidewalk was up to it, but they were approximately the same spacing as the timbers that we could see on the other side of the building. And I busted out some of those spalls all the way, and you could see there was rebar there, right adjacent to the building in that hole, so something's pushing down on that and causing that to pop off right there. We would say it's settlement of the building. Okay, the top picture is the east supports along the east wall. There's several of these posts that have been repaired, and I got some lag screws through here. They went on all 4 sides, and some of these there's like 2 or 3 repairs going up the post. I believe that I mentioned in the report the height of the eaves was like 17 feet, so you have 17 feet of post. There may be 2 or 3 of these scabbed in sections there, instead of replacing the whole post, which, you know, they did what they did to keep it going. The bottom.
It's not a proper repair.
No, I mean it's held up, but there's no way to say that's a really good repair. The screws, you would want something bolted all the way through with a total wrap around it to be holding that for sure. The bottom picture, this was a concern as well. The joists that are supporting the roof, I don't know if you can tell in that some of these were really discolored. We got up there and those are really spongy. I have another picture, I think might be on the next page.
The next one.
My mouse is really slow in my office. Let's see if I can do this. Should have my son up here, he's probably better at this than me. God. I think it's fast. There we go. Yep, okay. And you can see all 3 of those timbers in the top picture are discolored and rotten. And here's one where we got up close and it was rotted all the way through. It's just hanging there next to the support. So you're going to start getting a lot more of those posts that are going to be coming off their supports, or the timber rafters. I believe that was the last page of the pictures, right? Yeah, item 9. Are there any questions about any of those photos?
Jonathan, why have we replaced the post?
Why did we?
No, if we replace the post, could we replace them and make it safe?
Like I was trying to say earlier, nearly all the posts would have to be replaced.
All of them?
All of them. And your roof rafters are all going to have to be replaced as well.
And your skirting?
Yeah, and the skirting all the way around the outside. And some of the posts that have replaced already, are already starting to rot. I think a timber frame structure like this for the pole barn, or a pole barn type structure like this for this type of facility with plow trucks and a lot of moisture going in and out of there, it has just caused a lot of the deteroration.
A lot of your highway departments have pole barns.
Yeah.
You know that, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So, and that may be what you build as well. I believe if you were building a new one, you'd want to, make sure you had a good treatment process on your timbers, specify that, and some type of wrap down around the base where they're going to be in contact with chemicals, like a plastic wrap or something, where this didn't have any of that.
Have you ever inspected any of these buildings like this and they have been repaired afterwards?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen one that's this, I haven't inspected one that's been this bad.
Okay, but they have been repaired, correct?
What's that?
They have been repaired, ones you have inspected in the past?
Yeah, I've inspected repaired buildings, yes.
But not this bad.
I don't have my thing from Liberty, but they had a pretty good price on replacing 27 of the pole barn poles. Mr. Barker, what do we get for $600,000?
Well, in the first place, we don't know it's going to be $600,000. The estimate was $500,000 to $600,000 that two different firms that I've talked to. If we build a steel structure build and build it as big as we need.
How big is that, Martin? How big do we need?
Jay's got figured for the garage we need and to get all our equipment inside, we need a 70 by 300.
70 by 300.
With 22-foot ceiling. We've got lower ceilings here. We've got a building that we can't house all our equipment in. We've got a garage that we can't get with one piece of equipment at a time. And this gentleman in I think the last paragraph of his report says it would not be cost effective to repair this. You can put in some repairs, but it's not gonna fix the building. You're still gonna have problems if I read this right and what he's been telling us.
Bart, is that 70 by 300, does that have space for the office?
Yes.
Okay.
Which the plans are, should the funds be approved, to use the building trades class at the high school to give them training and to cut down on the cost as much as possible for the office areas and anything else that would be cost effective.
We'd have to get it on their schedule. When I talked to them earlier, they was interested in and was interested in doing the second semester this school year. What that situation is now, I don't know. If we could do that, it would be a help to us and to the building trades class both.
Jonathan, do you have any experience with Morton buildings? I know they still build these pole buildings. What is the life expectancy of their buildings? Because I know they build them different now than what they used to.
I do not know. I usually don't get into the specifying and building projects. I do more the inspection side rather than the design and the specifications of the new. I don't know offhand.
Okay. Have you inspected any hoop buildings, fabric covered buildings?
Not that I know.
You have
of.
not? Okay.
Not that I know of.
Can I, Mark?
Yes.
I went to Rushville
Yes.
and talked to the highway supervisor over there and looked at their hoop building.
Yes.
And he said, I'm just going off what he said. He said, the bad thing about the hoop buildings is, he said, they're good for storage space. He said, but once you get a hole in them, they're nearly impossible to patch because they're stretched so tight. Now, I don't know how you get a hole in one, but I'm sure over time, it's basically just a tarp like you put over a pool or whatever. And I took a few pictures and looked at them, and he said for him, he wasn't a big fan of it, but that's what they've had. It's So I was gonna answer your question on the hoop buildings as far as what he had said to me. I don't know per se whether they're different. The hoop buildings they have now may be a lot different than when they had them put in, I don't know. But
Did you ask him, what's the life expectancy that guarantees on those fabrics? Did you ask him that?
yeah, we talked about it, and he said probably anywhere from, as long as it's kept up and not poked or backed into, or somebody, he said, maybe 10, 12 years. He said, but, basically what happens is once it gets to the point of no repair, they have to take the hoop back off, and then you gotta buy a whole new, you still have the structure, but you've gotta buy the whole new thing and have it stretched and put back on there.
As far as your poles, those cost estimates figure a pole building at 25 to 35 years. You pay more for a steel building, you get longer life. If that's just what you have to decide, whether you want to pay up now or pay more in the long run. The commissioners haven't said that they're going to have to build a steel building. We're asking for appropriation of money, and we'll look at all the possibilities and see what the best building we can get for the least amount of money, whether that's buying a new building, whether that's buying an existing building, or whatever it is. But we have to get a building. That would everything has a economical life. That building down there is deteriorated down to where it's not cost-effective repairs. From what I see in this report, that if you repair it, you're basically building a new building.
Zane, you checked around, how many highway departments that you checked has got enough room to store all the equipment under the roof?
I don't think I found one place where they stored everything under one roof. They usually had outbuildings or so on and so forth, but, I did some checking around for other states and asked them, and like I said, I never came up with one that held everything, but there was one place, there's a couple places they said, well, everything's under roof, just not in one building, is basically what they said.
And that's basically what you have. It just makes sense that if you leave equipment set outside, it's not going to last as long as if it's put up on the roof at that rate.
Jay had something to say back there.
Jay?
I went, after comment was made that nobody put their stuff inside, I went and visited all the outlying county garages. And everybody in the wintertime puts them under roof because of the electronics on them. And I asked Wayne County where they put theirs at, and they take it to the fairgrounds and put it in the fairground buildings. Everything they're not going to use in the wintertime, they store at the fairgrounds to keep it out of the weather. They were saying the same thing I said. If you leave it sit outside, all your electronics on it goes haywire and you have to repair it. Right now we've got a paver sitting up there by Stars, and one of the hoses rotted in two on it from setting out because we don't get used maybe 2 times a year. And it's sitting up there off of somebody's grass because we can't get to it to fix it right yet. We're so far behind, but that's just the hazards is letting them sit outside all the time. And Franklin County, they put theirs up. Wayne County said the only thing they can't do is they can't get all their trucks on the roof in the wintertime. But they put half of them on the roof and half of them are plugged in, so they've got them. Rush County takes their trucks home, so they don't put their trucks on the roof. The drivers all drive their trucks home for the wintertime, for winter. I think they do it in the summertime too.
They do it year round, I think.
Yeah, they do it year round. But all their stuff, they've got it stored in their hoop buildings over there. And Franklin County, they've got 2 different locations. They used to have 3, and they've got 2 now. And they've got buildings they put all their stuff in. Because I made the effort just go ahead, and Union County's even putting their stuff under roof to make it last longer.
So you're saying in Rush County, they take the trucks home every night?
Yep.
You're talking about the big dump trucks?
Yeah, they drive them
Take them
home.
home and load your gravel, because I think what they do, they report to the job site in the morning instead of coming into
Yeah.
the building. I think that's what you do over there.
So I assume at their house, it's outside.
Yeah, in their trucks. The bad part about that is if you put salt sand or sand on it in the wintertime, it's going to be froze when you go to get it. About probably even set outside. That's the only hazard to doing that. Now, I don't know whether they load them before they take them home. I have no idea.
Does Anybody have
Probably
more,
what they're gonna do with it the next day.
Yeah.
more questions for Jonathan?
Jonathan, the office, I assume it was probably constructed the same way, do you know?
I believe so. I believe it was all constructed the same, just a post frame building. I mean, you could see evidence of that. Like I said, there was drywall over some areas, and I think the estimate of like 27, 28 posts there. That's probably all the ones that were just visible. But you could see the posts when you got down low and looked underneath there. And like I said, on that one picture with the sidewalk, you can see those are at the same spacing as the post. The rest of the structure. It looks as if it was all built as one structure. With the office space, if you were building it out of 2x6s or 2x4s, we probably had a smaller pitch on the roof or smaller eave height instead of being the full barn height. I would imagine.
Jonathan, one more question if you don't mind. And I'd like to, Mike, can you display the letter up there?
Yeah.
Your next to last paragraph, and I'm going to read it since everybody doesn't have it in front of them. Repair of the structure does not appear to be a cost-effective solution for the amount of deterioration observed during the inspection. If the timber rot were more isolated to one section of the building or to certain elements, it may be a valid approach. Nearly all the timbers in the building would need to be removed, rebuilt in the same location while maintaining the operations of the garage. Additional expense, this would appear to add additional expense as compared to the construction of a new facility. I mean, how long would that be likely to take? What would that put a burden on the highway department while they're trying to repair that while they're going about daily business?
Yeah, that was my point. I believe that would be a burden. I don't know how much of a burden, but I know I work a lot with other types of structures and bridges as well, and it always, anytime you're rehabilitating something to that extent, it ends up costing more.
Right.
So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Jonathan?
Actually, it's a comment to answer the question about the number of posts.
Okay.
Based on the...
Bill, you want to come on up
Sure.
and we'll take Jonathan out of the hot seat for a moment?
Okay, based on the number of the spacing of the posts that you have in the north end of the garage, there's probably 48 posts. There's a total of 28 posts referred to in the Miles Richmond proposal, and there's a total of 28 exposed posts. There's 24 within the actual north garage area, and then there's the 4 exposed posts that are around the 2 garage doors in the center of the building. So it's probably safe to make an assumption that those 28 posts that they're talking about replacing are all in that area, strictly the exposed posts. So it doesn't even relate to the rest of the building. And when you look up through the scuttle hole that's over the office, because that's also post structure, because you can see the post and you can see some of the same type of deterioration going on with the roof system above the office area. So it really isn't those 28 posts, you're rebuilding the entire area. And the fact that you're rebuilding, you're dealing with things structural, and it's one of the issues I was wanting to emphasize is that due to the amount of and the type of work that's being done, there's 3 conditions at that garage. It's going to require a design release from the state, and that it be prepared by an engineer, because the first one is volume of the highway garage exceeds 30,000 cubic feet, and just the north part exceeds 30,000 cubic feet. So that right there triggers that reconstruction of that north part of the garage is requiring engineered plans and a design release from the state of Indiana. So then that's repairs involve actually replacing structural supports and the foundations, which affect the structural safety, and that's a requirement for it to be engineered and a design release. And the third one that Commissioner Barker made reference to that came to light last week is that the fact that parts of the property were used as a trash dump at some time in the past means that parts of the building may sit on top of uncompacted fill. if this is correct, the Indiana Building Code would require that both the soil supporting the structure and the foundation system be engineered. And in order to do this, you need to determine the actual area of the, that was used as the dump. Because some of the building may be on the dump, some may not. And there's a possibility that the fact that it's, if there's on a dump, may explain some of the voids that are occurring underneath the intersection of the garage. And you really won't know that until you have it, until you have it fully and properly assessed. How big the voids are, and really what's causing the voids. And so I don't think that from a, from the building code and then also the design perspective, I don't think that it's the proposal and the estimate of Miles Richmond is at $46,000. I mean, that's a floor. Miles Richmond makes reference in their estimate, which basically says that they haven't assessed the conditions of the roof. Any additional cost, anything beyond that, other damage, well, that's to be determined at a later point. It makes clear that it's strictly an estimate. So even if it didn't require design release to be engineered, it's you have no idea what that could run into, because once you start taking down the post, you start assessing the entire roof system itself, you're into something that it's probably a complete rebuild. And the biggest issue I actually have here, and it's my role as a building official, is the most important thing to my job is safety.
Safety.
And the whole issue is it's a risk to the safety of the highway employees, and is emphasized by the Butler-Fairman report letter that it's the winter storm, which is when that biggest risk is going to occur. And that's a time where you're going to have highway employees in there. It's during that winter storm, while they're trying to do their job, the trucks are in there, they're bringing the trucks back in, and they're having to pick up the loads. So if there is going to be partial or catastrophic collapse, you're going to have county employees in there when it happens, most likely. And like I said, that's my absolute biggest concern. And the two comments that are made in the Butler-Fairman-Seifert report, it's been alluded to as a few columns have been repaired, but the effectiveness for the repairs and resist current criteria for wind and snow loads is suspect. And very importantly, the building can be expected to continue to rot and experience movement over the upcoming months of operation. Continued movement combined with severe weather events is a concern. And that means basically if something happens during a bad storm, don't be surprised. And most of the other things I have in here has been touched on in the report. Mr. Barker's made reference to also. It really has to do with just comparing the estimate from from Miles Richmond versus the Seifert-Fairman report. And it's, I know Miles Richmond, I know their work, and they're very good builders. But they aren't the engineers, and the building what is done is going to need to be engineered.
Right.
So.
Well, and I think they alluded to that too, but thank you for calling that to our attention. Any other questions of Bill?
One quick one.
Dale?
Bill, just a quick hypothetical question.
Yes.
You're the county's official building inspector. You inspect structures all over the county. Hypothetically, in this situation, if you had to, could you legally issue a certificate of occupancy to that building in its current condition if it was any other circumstance?
I would not do so. The only way I would do it is if court ordered me to. Because I'm not going to issue a certificate of occupancy where somebody could collapse. Because that would be criminal on my part, because I'm doing something that would allow either damage to property or possibly injury or death to someone. And it's I'm not going to go to prison for something like that.
So if this was a privately owned building,
I still wouldn't do it.
you wouldn't
I would not do it otherwise.
And since it is a publicly owned facility,
That's
probably should be more closely scrutinized, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it's heightened because of people in it, employees, public, anything like this with any type of Class 1 building, which involves public buildings, churches, schools, retail, factories, all these type of buildings. And these are why the state of Indiana reviews, the state of Indiana keeps to themselves issuing the design release for these type of buildings.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Mike, you've got some drawings up there?
Jay, you want to join me?
Jay, I got a quick question. The 70, you're 70, would that be 2 dump trucks deep? Okay.
The reason I went 70, when they got their plows on, they can get them in there and get them out of the weather.
Okay.
So if you load them, they're ready to go.
Okay.
60, we can't do it, they're sticking a half out. You can't get them in there.
Okay.
I worked with Jay on throwing together a hypothetical 70 by 300 building to kind of let you see what it would look like. This is what I do. And Jay had asked that this end here, if you can see the laser pointer, that's going to be all gravel floor there with all open bays. This is where Jay was talking about putting in 2 plows or 2 pieces of equipment, I guess front end to front end.
Yeah, you back one end to pull the other one in front into it. Line plows up next to each other.
So
It's been easier that way.
the way that I've kind of designed this is that in the future, at some point, if he ever wanted to throw doors on there, he could actually throw doors on here because they're framed in for the actual doors. They could just kind of add a slab or a couple bays or so. There's a demising wall between the slab area and the non-slab area. And that's kind of his work area. I didn't put in his oil pit yet in his compressor room. But this is all his office space that would be done, I guess, according to Barton, by the high school. And I'll just zoom in on that real quick.
That's the office space in the signing room area.
So this is what he had asked me to do is, so that's what they're proposing as their breakup. And then the advantage of the steel building too is it's a clear span. I mean, you don't have to have structural columns down the center of the work area where somebody can back a truck into it or whatever, cause potential damage. It's a clear span building. It's all supported and it's pre-engineered as well too. That's our conference room area. There's the supervisor's office, the office area, of course the restrooms, the lockers, his paint room, and his paint
sign room.
What did I say?
Sign room, you said paint.
Sign room. You're gonna paint there too, aren't you?
I hope not.
Okay, it's his sign room, and that's all his work bay area. And the way we've got it, it's not 22-foot ceilings; it's 22 feet of clear span. So, because of the way the girders, the trusses are designed, he'd actually gain a little bit more. But at its lowest point, it'd be 22 feet, given what he wants. And I didn't put the roof on it right now because I didn't think it was really that important right now. It just kind of gives you the gist of what it would look like, from the outside. Pretty simple, nothing fancy. You can see the doors on the end here, so it's obviously going to be heated workspace area, and that's all going to be open in that area there. A couple of, view from inside, so they're saying, at these lowest points here, that would be 22 feet. So he's going to pick up a little bit of height. And looking the other way, going, let's see here, bear with me. Anyways, the way Jay wanted it done is he wanted the above of this office area where he could put storage up there and maybe put some additional rooms or something. I don't know how he wants to attack that, but this is just something that we kind of threw together and to work with some pricing and so forth.
Why do you want your bays back where you're going to store your trucks 22 foot tall?
They don't really have to be that tall. You could drop them down. But I guess it was
It's just
bigger
easier.
than the roof line.
It's just easier to construct the whole thing in one shot and just.
Yeah, but you got wasted space.
No, not necessarily. I mean, if you want to drop it down, fine, but it's just simple to keep everything there. If you want to finish it off, you've got the potential to do that.
I had talked to Fuzzy sitting back there about making this two different heights, and you might want to relate what his thoughts are about whether you want to.
Just an innocent bystander.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
When you look at building a building like that, at one level, when you change the height of a level, you add snow load to that particular section. It's been my experience that if you're just dropping it down 2 or 3 feet, it's just as inexpensive to go ahead and build it at the same height rather than add the extra expense in to beef the material up to make it hold the extra snow load that would hold. Plus, there'll be snow there. If you drop it down 3 feet, there'll be at least 3 foot of snow there, typically. You agree with me, Jonathan? Yeah. And it's been my experience, it's inexpensive to go ahead and build it. Yeah, it does seem like wasted space, but you don't have an attic in there either.
And you're not going to heat the portion
No.
on the end with the open door space, so it's not a matter of heating and cooling. That. Thank you, Fuzzy. Any other questions of Mike with his design? And again, I think this is intended to show what the possibilities are and that the money that could be invested for a long-term. Mike, or do you have on this quote pre-engineered building, what would be the estimated lifespan? What would that be expected to last?
Fuzzy would know better than I would.
I can get 30-year warranty on it. It'll last 50 years with no maintenance whatsoever. If you maintain it, I don't know that, we don't have any buildings out there 75 years old, so I can't tell you that. But I can tell you that there are buildings out there 50 years old. They have to be repainted. The structure will be there for way longer than our grandchildren will be.
Wouldn't it be reasonable to say that a steel building would last twice as long as a pole building?
Easily twice. Well, the issue becomes with a steel building versus a pole barn, I guess if you're asking that question, and Jonathan can back me up on this, in today's world, they don't make treated lumber like they used to make it. And you can say all you want to about making sure that that post is banded with some sort of treatment. You can put plastic around it. You can do anything you want to. You're still going to have moisture permeation in that post. And you're still going to get 25 years out of that building. Maybe 30, 35 if you're lucky and somebody really works hard at keeping the moisture out of that. But that's typically all you're going to get out of a pole structure because of the moisture problem you have. And where your steel doesn't actually sit underground, all of it will be above ground.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from the audience? Oh, sorry. Joe?
Martin, where will this building be built? I mean, out there on 121, is that correct?
If we build a new building, like I said before, what we're here for is to get appropriation for the money. When we do that, we'll have architects draw up the building, and we'll get bills and play that against building an existing building. It might be a building that's already here in town. If we build it here in town, it will be, our intention is to build it right where it is, or on the same piece of ground that we have now.
There's a room to do that.
There's room, yes, there is room behind it.
And still to function.
Yeah, there's room directly behind it. It's gonna take a little grading. It's gonna take some grading if you move that building off of there and put a new one right there.
So you're either gonna build a new one or buy an existing building?
That was my instructions from the council, what they want me to pursue. And we'll do whatever turns out to be the best building for the least money.
Commissioners, let me aim this question at all three of you. Your additional appropriation request says for construction of a highway garage. It does not say the purchase of an existing building. Now,
That could be amended.
I want we've discussed this before, and I'm not in favor of changing locations of the highway garage. That's the best location.
Well, and I agree with that. That's the best location for a highway garage that we got.
But I don't want to leave any room for the purchase of a building in another part of the county.
And I understand that when I come before you before and ask for money, that's what we was told. That's the only way it was going to get any if we pursued looking at other buildings.
My personal preference, okay, is to leave it right exactly where it is. I mean, on that piece of property. Move it forward or back or around or whatever, okay? The only reason we wouldn't is if someone says legally you can't do that, okay? And I don't foresee that, depending on what the situation is with the trash area or whatever. But we own the land. There's no reason to buy another piece of land unless we're presented with no other option. And the building will fit there. I see no reason, in my opinion, to move that whatsoever. Or excuse me, to move from that property whatsoever.
And another thing with the environmental conditions that we found last week, it would be at the minimum expensive to transfer ownership of that to somebody else. You're going to clean it up if you do.
That was one of my primary concerns when we first started talking about this, was the environmental issues that could be found there, and obviously now that it's more of an issue than it was then.
And another issue is if you get a building in another location, then you've got the salt shed that you have to construct again somewhere else, or have two different locations.
We don't need two highway locations. Zane, are you in agreement with what these fellows say?
Yeah, I don't see any reason to move location. You're gonna have to buy more land, you're gonna have to, the cost is gonna go up significantly, so if you're gonna build something on that property, that is gonna be the cheapest route. And, up back or the back side of the property, the building's here, and then you got up on the hill. I mean, if you're gonna build something, that's the place to do it. But yeah, I don't want to move highway.
Okay, I guess that answers my question. But if you get into a situation where you're thinking about moving to a new location, you're going to not only incur extra expense, you would also incur probably public remonstrance from neighborhoods that wouldn't want this sort of operation in their neighborhood, that sort of thing. And everyone's used to it being where it is, and that's where I'd like to see it stay, for a number of reasons.
Well, my dad's not a big fan of the noise down there, but I don't worry that fast.
Okay. Well, your dad's a very tolerant guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, any other comments from the audience? Jay, please.
I don't want to beat it, like I say, beat a dead horse, but if the shape the building is, we're getting ready to go in the winter months, I worry more about the safety of the employees, and I can't afford to lose any more equipment if something falls on it, because you can't replace it. That's why I would suggest it be necessary to do something quick before something happens. Because when we start plowing snow and stuff, everybody's in there at all hours of the night and early in the morning. Could we park all of our trucks inside and plug them in? And if it would come down on some employees, I don't even want to think about it.
I know this isn't a different reference, but I said this in the past, and this is
Thank you,
something I'd
Jim.
like to see, is because where the highway garage is sitting out there where it's dark and, they leave and go home, and part of that construction, I would like to see security cameras, put it there at the highway garage. That would also cut down our liability on people going in and stealing copper out of the pug mill and cutting fence and, stuff like that. That way, cameras deterrent.
Okay.
Fuzzy. So real quick, I know this is very minimal, Wait, I know about the snow load, that you could reduce the one building by separating the two buildings. And taking it from 22 down to 14. So you'd save 8 feet in height, but you'd have to separate them to eliminate that snow load possibly. But you'd have to put an end on the one building. The one has one because it's got the interior wall. So you would save a little bit. I don't think it'd be.
There are a few things I think that everybody needs to consider on this particular building that you probably haven't thought about. Just about 3 years ago, they changed the code, and if they're going to be working on trucks in that section where they do work on trucks now, he has to have an air filtration system in there that will recirculate air. I can't quote the exact amount of times per hour, but it's rather expensive. The last building we did, just that system was $20,000. And it has to go in, the state will make you put that in. The other thing is, I believe that's over the square footage allowed without a sprinkler system. And as one big building. You can separate it, but I believe that, do you know, Bill, 60 feet? Do you know that, John?
I can't say right offhand, but I know that you can separate and into, put the firewalls in between, and then you can reduce that.
Yeah, you can reduce that by either separating or put a firewall in there. It's added expense. And just want to make sure everybody knew that. They also just recently changed the code on how much insulation you have to put in the building to meet state code, and lighting's changed. Everything's changed. Costs going up every day because of those things. The other thing that you might not have considered, since in light of what happened last week, or what you found out last week, in order for an engineer to design the foundations for that particular building, my experience is with most engineers, now that they know what they know now, they will require you to have somebody do boring testing of that ground to determine what kind of footers and foundation they'll have to put in for the building. If you run into unstable ground, then you're back to, I'm not sure where you're back to, but somebody will have to figure the foundations based on that, the suitability of the ground.
Which is the same, even if you theoretically rebuilt it, you have to still do the same thing.
Yeah. In my opinion, rebuilding that building is money thrown away.
Repairing that building.
Repairing the building, yes, that's correct.
Just throw down the,
As a taxpayer, I feel like you're throwing your money away, my money away.
yes. Thank you. Gary?
I had a question.
Gary, could you join us up here, please?
On your plans you got up here, I'd like to know, you've got, looks like 3 shop bays in there. I know you're going to, I was out there today, and you have got a small shop, I agree to that. But by going just with 2, you're going better than double your shop size.
But it's still, right now, what we got right now, we put a grader in there.
Right.
We can't get nothing else in there.
That's what I'm thinking, just, if you could just go with 2 bays instead of 3.
We were figuring 3 and use 1 just for oil changes with a pit in it.
Okay.
Service the vehicle.
Okay, that's what I was hunting for there.
Yeah.
To understand why you're putting 3 bays.
Yeah. One's a designated area just for
It's
that.
going to be the oil change area. Okay, you answered that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Or we can close this portion of close the public hearing. Final statements?
No, I think we pretty well presented a case that, the buildings deteriorate where something has to be done. It's the commissioner's job to maintain these buildings and the council's job to provide the funds. So we're just here to get the funds to build this, and whatever you feel that you can handle as far as appropriation, we'll take that amount of money, build the most garage we can build for the money.
Thank you, Barton. Thank you, Frank, Dave, Jonathan, and everyone for your contributions. Okay. Mike, before we take that down and go to the agenda, is there anything else you want to say about that? You want to switch us back to the regular agenda? Item B under new business is to adopt the 2014 budget. And as Dale said earlier, oh, I'm sorry, Jay, before we get into the heavy budget.
I wanted to ask a few questions about the budget, if I could. Okay?
Yes.
Don't get this one. I really want to know why you took the second mechanic out of the garage area. Because it is a need for that down there, because right now I've got a guy coming in there helping him. Because we've got a paver down, we've got a grade all down, and we got other equipment he's trying to catch up, and he can't keep up. It's just a need that needs to be there. And I had it wrote into the budget, and I was just wondering why it was deleted out.
Well, right now, Jay, as where we're at right now, we're $100,000 over, your budget.
On the what?
Pardon?
On not the local road, the street on the other budget. You're 100,000 over on that?
MVH, no.
No.
No, M201, the highway fund, which is with MVH money, he took that out and he reworked that to the state's
Formula,
estimate
yeah.
of what
That's
revenue
reworked
would
their
be.
formula.
And he came in right on the penny.
Yep.
What are you on, what page you on?
32, 33, 37.
I know when you called me on the phone after the last meeting and asked me about him working overtime, I don't bring him in to work overtime because I have to stay there with him. Because I have a key to the garage and I don't want nobody working in there by himself because I don't want anybody getting hurt. It's too easy to get hurt in there working on something by yourself. We've already had one guy pass away down there working in there by himself. We don't need another. No, it ain't been 20 years ago. You would ask me that. It's probably been close to 15.
So page 34 is where it's requested.
Yeah, probably. It's undistributed, general and undistributed. That part, 533.
Oh, yeah.
532, actually. That must be wrong. No, it's 530, 31, 32. Used to be 1, 2, 3.
530, 531, and 532. Do you recall the particular discussion regarding that? Was it strictly us disappears? We probably can't bring that up on the screens for the people, can we? Okay.
I could, if you need me to, I could. Do you have that with you?
Are you looking for this, Debbie?
Huh?
Looking for this?
Yeah, I gave them new ones right here. I handed, did you get
This
those?
evening? Yes.
Yeah. Should be similar page numbers. It's on page 32 of this latest budget I printed out. I wanted to make it look a little different from the others. And it's line 1.
Line 1, and this is the new one, portrait. The second mechanic was voted down, changing the request from 73,220 down to 36,110.
Right.
Was that a roll call vote too, I believe?
No.
For what it was worth with inside the budget hearing.
It's just a vote, it's a roll call.
Jay, can you, I know you have to bring somebody in from the road. When you have two people that you're working on equipment. And so then that second person, all of your road crews, do I understand, they work as pairs?
Usually we find something else for the other person to do, and the other one works in the garage. And right now, I'm gonna have to bring him in there and leave him in there until we get caught up, because we're that far behind. And he's got, going into winter months, we don't need to go in the winter behind on equipment.
Is that a equipment operator you brought in?
Yeah.
The part-time,
I bring a guy in that used to work, Darryl Cox used to work in the garage, and that's one of them bringing in.
the part-time budget, it looks like we took that from 25,000 down to 15,000 as well, on page 31.
That
was gonna ask-
part-time budget is for summer help mowing and mowing signs.
Mowing weeds.
Not to help with the mechanic when you're short a mechanic.
Pay the other guy a dime extra, I think, an hour.
Does anyone want to entertain a change?
Jay was asking for an explanation and no
You
one's
get a
offering.
job.
Jay,
I wanted to give it to him.
to give you the short answer to your question is, it was the general consensus of the council during hearings that they didn't feel like adding another employee at this time, and they made the cuts in your budget that they did make to keep the spending of your department in line with its income.
I'd already got it down to below the income. I had it right there on the money. That's why I didn't understand the cut.
40 or 45,000 now.
I can understand the cuts on the raises that I had in there, because you don't like to give raises to one department and not the other department. But on the other mechanic, when somebody would need, I mean, your equipment's old. I can list you the ages of the equipment if you want to listen to it.
That's what I was asking.
We've got 5 new trucks, and everything else is anywhere from 7 years on down. And I can run it right off to you. And if you don't think there's enough for somebody to do, we've got
Jay, I don't think it's a
53.
situation of that at all. I don't think that's.
We've got 53 pieces of equipment. And you can run down the list, and we got the newest truck besides the new ones is the 2006, and everything else is 2000 and below. And then you get to your graders, we got one new grader and we got an old grader. Your sod loader is a 1989, but it sits outside and it looks like it's 1979, but it's in sad shape. And then you go on to your grade hog, was a 1993, and that thing's down right now. We put a motor in it to get us by, and we can't send it out to ditch with it because it won't hold up. We'd use it on emergencies, after hours, and if we have to go clean a can out, we'll go do it, but to work it for any length of time, it just don't hold up. It's at that stage of the game right now. And this equipment that right here, you normally take 2 people to work on it. When you're standing up, you have somebody else work on one end up while you're trying to trace something down on the other end. It's like working on a big truck. You have to have 2 people to do it. Tractors is that way. A lot of times you got to have 2 people to work on them. You just can't do it by yourself. Here. Would you like to see the list of equipment down there?
Somebody screwed up.
I'd like to have a copy of it, Jay, if that's a spare.
What they wrote here, that would be replaced by a new one.
Thank you. So,
I just didn't understand the logic behind not putting another mechanic in there.
Jay, I think I can speak for myself while we were going through the budget. You know, we had a certain overall number we were looking for, and made changes in every one of the budget requests. That doesn't necessarily answer your question at all. I understand the frustration that you must see, and I think it's probably the same as our other department managers that have lost a person. And well, in fact, you haven't lost another one. You did lose that one, what, 4 years? You've been doing without that mechanic for 4 years.
Howard replaced him, put him out in the workforce.
I think that's kind of what the discussion was. If I recall, it had been eliminated a few years ago, and some of the council felt that was...
That's the main reason. When I was in the garage, I got out of the garage. I told Howard when we replaced him, I wasn't staying in there because it's too much work for one person. It's always been 2 mechanics down there, and at the time, the guy in there wasn't getting along with some people, and they took him out for that reason. Because that's a comment that was made to me down there, and that's the reason I didn't stay in there. I would not stay in there for that reason. The only reason I went back in the garage because the other guy got hurt.
Other questions for Jay? Thank you, appreciate the explanation. Well, I think that Debbie has put in front of everyone the budget as we left out of here last Wednesday. And I think that we are looking to approve the budget. She's also given everyone a copy of this ordinance for resolution for appropriations of the tax rate. This is what the system has printed out, and she's asking for each of us to sign off on either yay or nay or abstain.
Real quick, do roll call on check.
I think so, at this point, I guess I'd like to hear a nomination that we approve the budget. Can we have a nomination?
I nominate we approve the budget.
Second? Mark Nobby? Second? We have a motion on the floor to approve the budget in a second. Any further discussion about the budget? If not, call for a roll call vote.
I'll go right down the list, and in this one, Shirley does need to vote.
Okay.
Shirley Wise,
Aye.
Dale Strong,
Yes.
Mike Winta,
Yes.
Jim Wolf,
Yes.
Russ Seidel,
Yes.
Mark Flum,
Yes.
Mark Nobby.
Yes.
I think that would say motion carried. We can move on now to item number 8, additional appropriations request. Does everyone have copies of the? Start out with the prosecutor for a request for $55 for the appropriate June and July bad check fees from county general to the bad check fund line.
I'll make the motion that we do.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item number 2, or B, Public Defenders Fund. This is a request from Circuit Court, from the Circuit Court, and who was in here talking to us about?
Judge Butch.
Judge Bush,
And
sorry.
she explained it pretty thoroughly during the budget hearing. She has a certain amount in her budget for pauper attorney, and that has been used within her budget. This is outside of the public defender contracts. And there is a public defender fund that is funded through monies that are paid through the courts. And
This does not come out of county general.
it does not come out of county general.
And we tabled this motion last week, or last month's meeting, because we didn't have the explanation from her, and then when she came in, well, the budget. So could I have a motion?
Make a motion to accept the appropriations for the Public Defender's Fund.
Second?
I'll second.
Second by Dale. We have a motion on the floor to approve and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item C, the Cumulative Capital Development Fund. We have a request from the County Commissioners for $600,000. The name of the fund, CUMCAP, for construction of highway garage. I think that, Dale, you brought up a good point, that we could perhaps amend the additional appropriation request to go along with the feeling.
We can. I'll direct this comment at the commissioners. In order to avoid the appearance of writing the commissioners a blank check, I certainly share your concerns and certainly see the need for a new building at the highway garage. I'm on record for supporting that. So, but in order to protect our cumulative building fund, we have almost $1 million there as it stands right now. It replenishes itself at the rate of about $140,000 a year. Now, speaking for myself, I'd like to maintain a respectable balance in that fund in case for some emergency situation we need to borrow from it. And the 2014 budget actually puts a little more pressure on that fund than normal. So, for that reason, I'm going to ask, or I'll make a motion that the council consider your additional appropriation request from the Cumulative Capital Building Fund in the amount of $500,000 rather than the $600,000. And then if necessary, down the road, if you see the need for a few more $1,000s, maybe we can heal up a little bit and bring it from there, or you can use possibly some edit funds for it. So I'll put that in the motion, in the form of a motion, that we reduce the commissioner's request from $600,000 to $500,000 for the purpose of constructing a new highway garage, and only a new highway garage at its current location.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to amend the additional appropriation request from $600,000 to $500,000, and for the additional notation that it be only built on the existing ground currently occupied by the Highway Department. Any further discussion? I think we want to call for a roll call vote.
Yes.
Councilman Strong,
Yes.
Councilman Winter,
Yes.
Councilman Wolf,
No.
Councilman Seidel,
No.
Councilman Blum,
No.
Councilman Nobby.
No.
Okay, the motion on the floor has been rejected. Is there anyone on the council that wants to make a further modification to something that we could succeed in passing? I take it the silence is a no.
Mr. Wise.
Yes.
Did you have rejected the additional appropriation and you had the testimony, if you will, up here of the engineer's condition of the garage. The commissioners are kind of lost on what we're supposed to do now. So, is the council saying we will not spend any money to build a new garage, just let it sit there? We just need direction where we're going.
I would say as the situation stands right now, there's nothing you can do except let it sit.
Unless the council has some.
Well, I can't speak.
Basically, what you have said is you're satisfied with the deteriorated garage and it falls down, and that's it. So,
Well,
if that's it, that's what we'll do.
I'm not satisfied with that, Commissioner Barker. I'm willing to just invest $500,000 in this project right now. Now, we can adjust it down to 400,000 to 200, we can get right down to $50,000. I don't know, I can't speak for the rest of the council, but I know.
Dale, I'll make a motion for $300,000.
We have a motion on the floor for
Because
300.
I want the safety factor from the employees be taken care of first.
Do what now?
300.
Well, I didn't understand, I understand 300, I didn't understand what you said.
Safety factor of employees first.
Pardon?
What about the employees?
300,000.
He didn't hear what you said
Oh,
about the safety
I
factor.
want to get this fixed for the safety of the employees.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to change the appropriation request to 300,000. Do we have a second?
I want to amend that motion. Can I amend that slightly?
Well, it has to die for due to
Okay.
lack of a
Nine.
second or something.
I think. So we have no second for the motion for 300,000. So we'll ask again.
I'll make a motion that we use $300,000 out of the King Cap Fund to apply for this new highway garage, along with, as Mr. Barker suggested a couple meetings ago, $200,000 from the edit, which is a total of $500,000 to go towards the highway garage. And that is for both construction costs and what they call soft costs, which is your engineering cost up front. That's my motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor to amend the additional appropriation request to 300,000 from the Cumin Cap Fund, an additional 200,000 to come from the edit funds to be used towards the new county highway garage. Can you hear that, Martin?
Yeah. Can I say something?
Please do. You want to clarify?
I'm not sure there's that much edit funds there. You've already added an additional 237,000 in edit funds in order to balance or to attempt to balance the county general fund. I wish I had had a little heads up on something because I'm unclear of whether the funds are there.
If they are there, they are in the portion that we have for economic development projects. And it's a possibility that we can use some of those funds by us amending the capital plan for this, according to our conversation with Rick Hall the other day. All of what you've done as far as the budget, and as far as doing this, the edit funds are just stretched so far.
They are not a bottomless pit, and, I'm not trying to, I know as well as anyone else, I've read all the reports, I've worked for a company that put up pre-engineered steel buildings, I'm well aware of all of everything that goes along with it, and that they need a new building, and I'm very concerned about the safety of the employees.
I don't know, none of you said what you were thinking about what you're willing to spend for this, any reasoning for the amount of money you want to spend. I mean, do you,
Well, first of all, I'd still like to know, Debbie, what happened to the additional funds, added funds that was not spent 2 years ago in the last 2 years, which that can still be used because.
Which
we got up to-
They
105,000
just
of it.
appropriated 105,000 of them, and you're gonna
We have 3
use,
years to do that.
and you just appropriated 110,000 of them. Now you're gonna use another 237,000 of them. There wasn't an extra 500,000, I didn't think, I mean, in there, you know. You have ongoing expenses. I think it
You have
would,
added funds coming from next year, which we don't know what they are. Like I said before, you make the motion to appropriate whatever you think we
That's
can
what I
stand
do.
for building a garage, and the commissioners will do what they can. Whether we can get a building bill for what you're wanting us to spend, I don't know, but we'll find out. The reason we haven't done anything as far as getting architects or getting bids before now, because we haven't, you haven't said whether you'd spend anything or not. So, you know, make the motion of what you're willing
part
to.
of the reason I made my motion like that, I don't want to spend any more than that because, like I said, the condition of the grounds down there and not just, I'm not saying the buildings, but the grounds. Nothing's organized down there at all. It's total in disarray. I know 2 members that work down there that work on the highway garage. I know their home place, and their home plate is as neat as a pin. Now, if they do that at home, there's no reason why they can't keep that place down there organized. Just like those guardrails.
Well, I agree with you, Mr. Flynn, but
Those guardrails in the back of that building were just thrown in a heaping pile. They could be neatly stacked. There's all kinds of things that could be done down there to keep things more organized.
Mr. Flynn, I understand your point,
Yes.
that you'd like to have but that is 2 separate things. Keeping the place looking good, or whether we need a new building, you know.
No, because I think a new building would end up the same way if we don't determine that we don't demand that things be kept clean.
Well, we will demand, but does that have a bearing on
On the motion that
whether
you're
it-
trying to
whether it's
put before the
300,000?
I'm
council?
just saying that's why I don't want to spend any more than that.
Mark?
That's my reasoning on that.
Mr. Plum,
Yes.
may I ask you a question?
Yes.
I really don't remember if you said it or someone else said it, but we wanted to keep X number of dollars back in case of an emergency, it had been deal, okay? But honestly, what other kind of emergency can you
Well, that
envision
was-
other than a building falling down?
I mean, that was,
Okay, like I said, I didn't remember if it was you. Someone made the statement, but you got a building that's going to fall down.
yeah, that's an emergency. I'm willing to give you that appropriate $500,000 for it.
Okay,
I mean, we're not gonna get this building done probably, construction wouldn't even start till sometime next year. probably.
We have to start somewhere as
Yeah.
far as getting architects to draw up the plans,
Right.
deciding what we want, and putting it out for bids. Yeah, it has to start somewhere, it needs to start now. So if you're saying $300,000 what you're willing to spend out there, and if we can find 200,000 in the added funds, that's where we'll start the project, and then come back and tell you if that doesn't,
I mean, that's my
if that
motion.
doesn't work.
And that's been seconded, so now we're discussing it, so
Okay,
if everybody's discussed, then we'll put it to the vote and go from there.
okay.
I've got a quick question. Mark, building design and that sort of thing is your area of expertise. What do we do if they can't build the kind of building that meets their needs for 300,000? What do we do then?
Well,
You have to open the money to get what they can.
I mean, the immediate
But we don't have
needs,
to go carry away about it, right off the bat and buy a 700,000 building, we have to think what we need.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I'm not in favor of giving them a blank check to build $1 million building. But I want, my intent was to be reasonable about this.
Well, 300,000 would get you started right off the bat, get you the engineering and stuff like that.
the immediate needs of the highway garage, the way I see it, what Jay's really expressed, is his garage to work on the vehicles. That is the number one
The shop.
concern, shop. And that is more than enough money to build that 3-bay garage. More than enough. Now, the rest of the housing, I looked into those hoop buildings. I think that needs to be looked into. Now, I know Zane has looked into it somewhat, and he's found, but I'd like to find some more details about that fabrics and what the life expectancy of those are, and look at that type of building for the storage part. So.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. The 300,000 from the cume cap and 200,000 from, or whatever might be available from edit.
You can only vote on the 3,000 because we advertised an additional appropriation by fund for cume cap only. So you can only approve a reduction of the cume cap. Correct, Gail? You cannot vote on any edit monies. And I would, yeah.
If money's taken out of the edit funds, the commissioners are gonna have to vote to amend the capital plan to do that. The council cannot do that.
Yes, right.
That's the purpose of us publishing. We do the legal ad and publish it in the paper, and that's our notification. And we can't, we couldn't do an additional for a penny in there. It doesn't matter what the dollar amount is because it was not advertised, so.
And the commissioners haven't amended their plan to do it.
That's right.
But I would like to add from the comment, and I don't have a date on here, but your initial request, proposed funding request for the highway garage suggested that some of the, at that point in time, it was thought that 350,000 to come from the cume cap, 100,000 from edit, and 100,000 from the additional funding from the highway.
But that's before you want to take
That's long before.
237,000 out to reduce the general fund budget.
To do your general fund. And that's
So-
also before the state figures were revised of how much the highway department was gonna get.
Right, right. The point that I'm trying to make is, at one point in time, we did think that there were two other sources
Right.
in addition to the cume cap.
And now there's one other.
So, now, so
You're back to,
So we're back
Jim's
to
motion of
Jim's motion.
300,000 for cume cap. Looks to me like, I'm looking at the notes.
okay, do you understand? So I think
Yes,
if we in fact cannot vote to appropriate any money out of the edit fund.
That would also give us some time to analyze those figures and see if we've got enough to cover that. The only other thought to throw in there too is that if you continue next year to form the 2015 budget by using all those edit funds, I don't know how long edit monies can sustain that.
But some additional time to look into it. I mean, if in fact a motion for the 300,000 can get the process started and give the time required to
Well,
look
you know, we
into
can get the projects started, but we're gonna have to do it with the thought that we are gonna build some kind of a building, because there's no need of spending a bunch of money for architect's plans and this and that.
Right.
That's like I said before, and then wind up doing nothing. That's just throwing money out the window.
Right. Well, and I
But
think,
if the 300,000, if you want to do that, if we look at the edit funds and see if we can get some out of there. Well, like I said before, we need to know how much money we got to work with, and then the commissioners do the best job they can of getting the most building for the money.
okay. That said,
Does he have to restate his motion?
Well, I would withdraw mine and would go with Jim's, because Jim's is
okay,
basically.
so if we were to fall back to Jim's, do we
Mine was
have?
turned down, so I have to make a motion again.
But Jim, would you care to make that motion again?
Make the motion.
I'll make a motion for $300,000 for the new highway garage.
I'll second it.
Who seconded? No. Any additional discussion
From cume cap, Jim.
from cume cap?
Yes, yeah.
Roll call vote.
Dale Strong,
Yes.
Mike Lanfo,
Yes.
Jim Wolf,
Yes.
Russ Seidel,
Yes.
Mark Plum,
Yes.
and Mark Nobby.
Yes.
Motion carried.
We'll proceed from there.
Thank you. Item number 9. Transfers. Danny, I didn't see any transfer requests. Did I miss? Did I overlook it?
We don't have any.
Jay, you didn't have any transfers this time, did you?
I don't think so. That's what's coming in next month, I think.
Yeah, I don't believe we have any transfers this time.
Moving on to patron concerns. Any patrons left? Thank you. Thank you. If no patron concerns, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Anyone?
I'll second.
All in favor? Adjourned.
Sit where you are.